Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Analyzing Evil, where we pull back the curtain on the most complex minds in cinema. From the sinister to the silently shattered, today we delve into the morally complex, emotionally devastating world of Indian espionage with one of Bollywood's most quietly terrifying figures, Sehmat Syed, from the 2018 film Raazi. At first glance, Sehmat Khan, later Syed, is no villain. She's a college student, soft-spoken, kind, almost painfully innocent, but behind the gentleness lies a psyche primed for manipulation, a soul slowly bent into the weapon by the demands of patriotism. Her journey takes her from a life of poetry and peace in Kashmir to becoming an embedded Indian spy inside the heart of a Pakistani military family. And with every lie she tells, every secret she uncovers, every life she takes, a piece of her humanity dies. This episode isn't about a mastermind or a monster, it's about what happens when an idealist is molded into a tool of statecraft. What's left behind when duty demands blood, betrayal, and silence. This is the story of Sehmat Syed, where innocence becomes the most dangerous camouflage, and evil isn't loud. It's widespread through acts of loyalty. The 1971 liberation war of East Pakistan was not simply a territorial skirmish, it was a humanitarian implosion. India intervened not solely from altruism, but from a geopolitical calculus. The atrocities committed by the Pakistani army on the Bangladeshi and the Bengali population and the ensuing refugee crisis were real, but so were the deaths of innocents caught in the political theatre. Sehmat Syed, the young, bright-eyed daughter of Kashmiri Muslim household, becomes the vortex through which the 1971 Indo-Pak War unspools its most intimate devastation. Her tale, distilled from the visceral, one sees through morality, nationalism, and innocence, captures not merely the tragedy of a woman but the subversion of an entire ideology. Sehmat was a vessel of decency, not malevolence. And yet she becomes a tool of state, of betrayal, of orchestrated silence. The following analysis dissects her transformation through upbringing, ideological engineering, her moral collapse, and the weaponization of innocence amid the bloody backdrop of the liberation war of East Pakistan. Born into the Syed family in Kashmir, Sehmat was raised amid the duality of culture and conflict. Her father, Hidayat Syed, maintained close ties with the Indian intelligence while nurturing relations across the border. Sehmat grew up with the intimate knowledge of borders, visible and invisible, ideological and emotional. Her environment was drenched in patriotic rhetoric, but her home was filled with warmth, music, Sufi ideals, and delicate balance. Her education was cultivated in literature and idealism, a woman of thought and emotion rather than strategy or aggression. Her household was no stranger to political undercurrents. Kashmir in the 1960s was a melting pot of secularism strained under nationalistic pulls. The Syed family walked this tightrope, raising Sehmat to understand the loyalty not just to a nation but to a peace itself. This duality becomes the soil of her inner conflict. It is precisely her humanist upbringing that made her pliable, sensitive enough to feel, fragile enough to be broken, and malleable enough to be reshaped. After Hidayat's death, Sehmat's idealism was cracked by grief. Enter Khalid Mir, whose stoic, clinical, emblematic of India's intelligence machinery. Mir did not recruit a soldier, he sculpted a ghost. Sehmat was selected not because of her strength, but because of her vulnerability. She was not trained to kill, she was trained to become invisible, emotionally agile, capable of erasing herself to inhabit another identity. Mir recognized her moral compass and bent it without breaking it yet. He justified the means with ends she couldn't comprehend fully, packaging espionage as an act of love and duty, though mental conditioning, surveillance training, and emotional detachment exercises. Sehmat becomes the perfect candidate because she still believes she was good. This is where evil takes root, in the sanctity of intention. Married into the family of a Brigadier Syed, a high-ranking official in the Pakistani army, Sehmat entered not an enemy's lair but a mirror of her own family. Iqbal Syed, her husband, was gentle, thoughtful, and loved his country with the same soft fervor that Sehmat had once reserved for hers. His mother was warm, his father was respectful, and the home was filled with dignity. This was the crucial psychological collapse. Sehmat began to see not enemies but humans, yet she was forced to act. Her killings of Abdul, the loyal servant of Mahbub, the family friend and officer, were not tactical. These were visceral acts, desperate to protect her mission. Each death was a threat pulled from her soul. Her morality didn't erode in explosions, it peeled away in whispers. The culmination of her betrayal came with the murder of Iqbal, the man who had begun to understand her without exposing her. Sehmat did not plunge the knife herself, but she orchestrated the silence that led to his death. It was perhaps the first straw in her devolution. Iqbal's blood was the sacrifice that buried the last remnant of Sehmat's self-image. Sehmat did not kill Iqbal because she hated him. She killed him because he became an obstacle. This utilitarian shift from love to liability marks her full transformation into the tool of the state. Her values did not collapse under hatred but under purpose. She had become the perfect spy, a believer in nothing but the mission. Once returned to India, she is not celebrated. She is buried alive in anonymity, mentally fractured, psychologically spent. Her service is acknowledged, not honored. She has no home to return to, no family to mourn her loss with. She is a ghost among the living. This abandonment is the final cruelty. The state that used her disowns her pain. Sehmat is left not with medals, but with trauma. Her hands, once trained to play sitar, now shake from the memory, the cost of war. From her perspective, it is not victory, it's irreplaceable damage. For the Saids, this war was deeply personal. Sehmat's father saw it as a final straw of unity. His decision to place his daughter in harm's way was made in the belief that war was already inevitable. But for Sehmat, the horror of East Pakistan's suffering was abstract, filtered through reports and orders. Her immediate world was that of trust betrayed, of faces she had to smile at while plotting their deaths. Sehmat Syed is not a villain. She is the epitome of quiet descent from innocence into instrumentality. Though we see not a hero but a haunted shell, shaped by nationhood, cracked by war, and discarded by the very ideal she bled for. She reminds us that patriotism, when wielded without mercy, does not protect the soul, it annihilates it. Intelligence operations, cloaked in secrecy, operate outside morality, and that the human cost of war is not only in the bodies buried, but in minds left broken.